Welcome to the Breaking Muscle podcast, where we bring you insights from some of the biggest names in all of fitness. I am Pete Hitzeman, your host and managing editor of BreakingMuscle.com, and joining me as a co-host for today's show is programming guru Mike Tromello of Precision CrossFit. Val Voboril is a perennial fan favorite at the CrossFit Games, and it's not hard to see why. Her trademark perpetual smile and indomitable attitude seem to defy even the most grueling workouts. In a sport increasingly dominated by full-time athletes, Val is happy to be a full-time mom and teacher first, and an athlete second. Not that it's slowed her down any. At 38, she just earned her 6th invite to the Games with a 3rd-place finish at the 2017 California Regional. Val, Mike, and I cover Pecpocalypse 2017, the roots of Val's positive mindset, and the importance of keeping your focus on yourself and nothing else during competition. Val also talks about the challenges and advantages of switching between mom and athlete mindsets, and the importance of keeping fitness fun for her health and longevity. Joining us today from sunny Southern California is Val Voboril and coach Mike Tromello. Val has just qualified again for the CrossFit Games, and Mike sends people to the CrossFit Games for a living, so they're going to be talking us through the 2017 season, which I have nicknamed Pecpocalypse 2017. And thank you guys for joining us today. Thanks for taking the time. How's everybody doing?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming out. Val has the distinction of the fittest mom on earth, which I thought was a really cool thing. I was going through your website today, and it's true enough. You've been a 4 times top 5 finisher at the CrossFit Games.
Correct.
And headed back again this year. So the first thing that kind of jumps out, and this is a good thing for Mike to chime in on as well, the conventional wisdom is that going to regionals and going to the CrossFit Games, it's a full-time job. Thou shalt work out 7 times a day, volume. And Val, you say, no, we're going to do this 1 hour a day. I'm going to have a life and a kid and a job. And how does that shake out for you?
Well, so far so well.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the general rule. I don't think it works for everybody. But for me, it has to be fun. So the fact that it's not my full-time career means I can keep it fun. And I guess that's where I feel like some of my longevity comes in, or Becca Voigt's longevity comes in, when you keep it fun.
Right. Now, Mike, how the athletes that you coach at that level, is there a big variance in how much volume works between different athletes?
Yeah, I mean, there's a massive difference. I mean, Val is an exception to the norm, but at the same time, I kind of, my whole point of wanting to talk to her today is I wanted to make it kind of clear that what she does and how she does should become more normal and how she does it, because I think people put too much volume in and they do too much and they get injured or they overtrain. And I think there's a lot to be taken from having fun, because this is supposed to be sports are supposed to be fun, not your life. And CrossFit, honestly, they call it a professional sport, but we don't get paid to do CrossFit. So you're not a professional sport. We have to pay to play. We have to pay to go to regionals. We have to pay to go to the games. So not everyone, I know Val doesn't have a lot of sponsors anymore that are, even when she did, they're not paying her all this money to go. So you have to have a good time. You have to want to be there. So I think that, yes, my athletes, the younger athletes definitely put a lot of volume in. As far as my master's athletes, my 6-year-olds are doing like 45 minutes a day. And my Bill and James Grundler are total complete opposites. James will put in 2 or 3 hours a day. Bill will put in an hour a day, just like Val. So it just depends on age and body makeup, et cetera, time.
Yeah, and I think it becomes a quality over quantity, and then also how much. I think if we actually looked at what people accomplish within their hour time, I think my hour is very, very nonstop. Whereas some other people's hour or 2 hours, we might accomplish the same amount of work in our different varying amounts of time. And by no means is leading up to the games an hour a day. Of course, now that once work is out, my volume's going to intensify so that I'm prepared and my body's prepared to deal with what they throw at us at the games. So the hour a day, the hour and a half a day is what happens when I'm working full time.
Yeah, so let me back up for a second. What do you teach?
I'm a 4th grade elementary school teacher.
That's awesome. That's a fun age.
It is a fun age.
That's before they get super snotty and start making out and stuff.
This is very true.
So I wanted to kind of touch on that because obviously you got to get in if you've got an hour a day and get the work done. There's not a lot of time. I mean, you're not Instagramming and doing whatever. And I wonder how much of that is actually a positive transfer into competition where, at regionals, you're not working out for a solid hour. You might have a 15-minute workout and a 9-minute workout or something, it depends on what's on the board. Plus your warm-up and things. So the volume, is the volume different, or is it a familiar feel for you once you got into the regionals atmosphere this year?
Fairly familiar.
Okay.
I think by day 3, by Sunday, I definitely was feeling a little tired, so that's where the volume for the games needs to pick up, so that back-to-back that many days in a row, when my body's, because prior to this, like when my body's feeling tired, I take a day off, versus now when my body's feeling tired, you're going to have to push through it a little bit, as long as, you're being injury-free.
And Mike, on the topic of smart volume, there's been so many theories about the plethora of pec tears, and I've seen a lot of very intelligent theories and a lot of kind of less intelligent theories, and a lot of people calling Dave Castro bad names, which is pretty normal. What's your take? Are people overtraining going into regionals and they're just weakened when they get there, or what's going on?
I have a very intelligent answer to this question because I've been asked it very much so, and I don't think it has anything to do necessarily with programming. Okay. Being someone who programs a lot of competitions, in fact, I'm pretty much programming almost every competition in Southern California these days. I thank CrossFit for doing the ring tips, so I didn't make that mistake. But I don't think it's their fault. I don't think that the way they did it is their fault. I don't think it's Dave Castro's fault. I think what it comes down to is the male and female anatomy. And when they do a dip, and people don't understand that, is that the male anatomy when they go to do a dip, it's like a piston, and their stress reflexor is different. So when they go into that position, they fire pec to come out, whereas a female actually fires more shoulder tricep first. So at a high intensity, which you go 21-15-9, just go 3-2-1 go, and it's a 5-minute workout. The guys are going to do that piston-like reflex, and they're going to just fire really fast, and that's going to cause a pec strain. Remember, De Castro said this, and I have to agree, there weren't 35 pec tears. There were 35 pec injuries. 2 of them were my athletes, unfortunately. They weren't torn. They were strained, and they're back training now. It just stinks. 2 years ago when they did it in the chipper, it was the same amount of reps almost, same exact standard. But it was like an 18-minute workout, so people were already breaking them up in 2s and 3s and smaller sets. So that took off intensity. So just like any sport, when intensity raises, injury rates go up. 3-2-1 go, 21-15-9, intensity raised, injury rates went up. That's why you saw all men and 1 female injury in the pec because of their anatomy. And the only way we could have figured this out, unfortunately, I think, is if them the program this particular workout and how they did it, just like Murph a couple years ago. You didn't see them do Murph the following year at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the blazing sun. They waited till the early AM and they changed the rep scheme up because they learned from their mistakes. CrossFit's still in its infancy, so they're going to have to learn from. Unfortunately, there were some casualties, but they're going to have to learn from their mistakes and they're going to have to fix it. If they do it again, then you got some issues that they should have.
Right. How was for both of you? How was the pushback when the events were announced and there wasn't a barbell in sight? Was that like a super big bummer for everybody, or was that kind of okay?
I was stoked. Yay! No barbells.
My athletes come to me to get better with a barbell. Actually, they come to me because of my strength background, and so all of them are really bad with a barbell. So came out that we had to do dumbbell work. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be awesome, and it really worked out great for my team, who was actually very weak with the barbell this year as well. So I was very happy with the workouts.
So Val, one of the things, looking at the bigger picture of CrossFit Games competitors, especially those who have been several times, one thing that happens after several years of participation for a lot of athletes is that they choose to go team, or this year choose to go masters. Was that ever a consideration for you, or is it I'm going individual or I'm staying home, or what's the thought?
Oh, I was definitely planning on masters. I didn't think there was going to be a shot in heck that I was going to make individuals. So okay. I had 2 carpal tunnel surgeries, left and right, Halloween and Thanksgiving. So the training had significantly decreased, and what I could do in training had decreased, and the things that I needed to work on, like barbell work and strength work, were really hard to do without the use of hands. So I really didn't think I was going anywhere this year.
And yet here you are. So let's segue into how your regionals weekend went. Was it hot? It looked like it was almost open air.
No, it's breezy and beautiful. The Del Mar Fairgrounds is fantastic for competition.
Nice.
Except for all the dust, it's awesome.
Yeah, but you don't get that the athletes don't get it unless you're out.
No, I love it.
So, event 1, it looked like you were warming up for the entire event. Like you were super chill, you walked from thing to thing, and you finished out, and you smiled, and you waved, and you did your trademark Val thing. Everybody else gets to the finishing mat and dies. Like in the second heat, everybody the commentators called it carnage. It was just slayed people laying all over the mats. Was it actually that easy, or are you just a fantastic actress?
Acting helps a lot. But I like that. I mean, it was like a version of, Cindy, and you just you run a little bit first, and then you squat and pull up and handstand push up. It was those are all fun movements to me. You take body weight stuff and no barbells, and I can just have fun with that and smile.
I think I don't know if you know, but Val's kind of known for her pull-up ability for years. For years in CrossFit, before people even followed CrossFit, Val's pull-ups were like a big deal. I remember, I saw her in 2000. Actually, we did the same level 1. Back in the day. And Val did Fran in 226 or something stupid, and she did butterfly pull-ups. And I was like, what the hell are those? I've never seen those in my life.
Wasn't quite that fast, but yeah, it was a good Fran.
It was under 3 minutes. It was I remember it was it might have been 3:31, but back then that was ridiculously fast for Fran.
Nice.
If you like the pull-ups.
Your judge looked bored. That was the thing that was kind of cracking me up. I'd watch every time you went back to the handstand push-ups and the pull-ups. Your judge is like, oh, here she is again.
I love my judge, and the judges have the hardest job in the world. But my squatting judge cracked me up. He wanted my shoulders further back and me more vertical. And I was like, I'm gonna fall backwards. But whatever standards they have, or whatever he needed me to do that for to achieve whatever movement pattern he needed to see, cracked me up, especially when I watched everyone else monkey, hands brushing the ground.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining. I can't. I don't want that job of judging.
Oh, it's the worst. Yeah, I've helped out with some stuff like that, and there's no thanking in that job. It's bad.
I don't want to be a jerk.
Yeah. I mean, I'm good at being a jerk, but I don't like it. It's one of the things. So event 3, then, other side of the spectrum. Event 3 did you no favors, but you still didn't do anything but smile through the whole thing. But talk to me about hybrid rope climbs and ridiculous wall balls, and how was that?
I love rope climbs. Maybe if there had been more of those, that might have been in my favor. But wall balls, being short, wall balls are not my friend. Especially when you're jumping from the first rep on, or when you airball the first 2 reps and your judge goes, "You have to hit the target."
Thanks, Guy. I appreciate that.
So.
Yeah, I got surprised with my coach sprung some 30-pound wall balls on me the other day, and I was surprised how much that just destroys your usual mechanics. You wouldn't think it's still a wall ball, but it's totally not just a wall ball anymore, because your timing's off and your drive is different. You have to stand closer, and it's bizarre.
Yeah.
So then event 4, kind of a come from behind, good pacing through that event, and then you kind of forgot and ran back to the rig, and still won. Still pulled it out.
I don't know what happened. People say that my judge tapped me on my shoulder or touched my shoulder, and so I turned and followed him. I don't remember that happening, so maybe it was a subliminal follow leader, but whatever it was, again, no fault to the judge. No matter what he did, my job is to know the event and know what I'm doing, which obviously I forgot what I was doing. But it was funny, right before we went out to that event, I was asking Becca, I'm like, what order do we do things in? And she goes, Val, do it in whatever order you want, which maybe that was a subliminal. But my husband was furious. He's like, did you not hear the entire crowd yelling at you to go the other way? I go, nope. It's my own little world. But it was fun.
Clearly, I mean, there's pluses and minuses to being, in your zone where nothing can bother you. You also sometimes don't hear the crowd yelling instructions, I guess. So the Val approach is to be calm and to be just happy in the moment and not worry about mistakes, not worry about any of those things. And it's a very almost like a mentally down-regulated state, even as you're physically upregulated in competition. Mike, is that a mindset that you try to teach others, or is this how do you scale your mindset approach to your different athletes?
I have a plethora of different personalities I have to deal with. And I think one of the biggest things I try and do is mental mindset with them and work with them. I think at this point, other than like one or two of them, it's really about getting them to qualify for regionals, and that's a whole mindset in itself, because it's you against the world essentially, or you against your region. It's a lot. It's very, very stressful unless you just have it. Unless you're like, there's people I have like Chelsea Grigsby who can just show up in a gym and qualify in one workout and make it. It doesn't matter. But there's people that literally have to do the workout 2 or 3 times to get the right score, and you have to be so mentally strong to be able to do that. Getting to regionals now is a whole other ballgame, because you have people like Val who have been there, they know the game, they understand them. And I say this when it comes to CrossFit, there's one, if you're going to go to the highest level of CrossFit, there's a couple things you have to understand. Once you understand all the movements, you can do them well and you're efficient, then you have to be able to understand and say, okay, you see a workout when it comes out, and you mentally can look at that thing and say, if I hit it like this with my abilities, no matter what else is going on around me, I'll be successful. And a lot of athletes can't do that yet. They get there, but they just fall apart on the floor because they get too involved with what's around them, and then they fail. And that's why Val's going to her, God knows, whatever CrossFit Games that she's going to, because experience over
6th, I think.
Over ability. 6, right? Yeah. And why Becca goes back every year, even though she's got to not be in the main division, she's going to her 10th anyway. It's because of experience, knowing their bodies, knowing what they're due on the floor.
I can connect to the blinders on, like having confidence in knowing what you can do and keeping the blinders on so that you execute your game and stay true to your body. Yeah. Because I think that's where, especially the newer athletes, like I get teased because I yawn right before an event, and it scares the crud out of my coaches. But it's part of me mitigating my adrenaline before, so that I don't use it up until I get to the floor. Because the adrenaline is so taxing, and leading up to just an event, you can expend so much energy there. Or then like the second you get on the assault bike, you're so pumped, and all of a sudden you're hitting RPM speeds that you've never hit before because you've got so much adrenaline and you just can't control it. But then your body still feels the effects of, holy crap, I just pushed 80 RPMs and now I'm going to fall on the floor and die. So my experience is mitigating that adrenaline beforehand, and then keeping the blinders on to a certain point. I mean, that's what makes for the fun races at the end, if you are able to take the blinders off and push that final pace. But yeah, the experience pays dividends, and having confidence in what you're capable of and knowing where your give and takes are going to be.
Yeah, that's kind of my next question was when do you take the blinders off? Like, how do you know when to say, okay, now I need that extra push, I'm going to look to my left, or I'm going to look at the crowd and go and let that adrenaline rush hit me and take me to another place?
When I ran the wrong way on event 4, I saw Lauren at the toaster bar, and I ran for the toaster bar. I'm like, I want this.
I don't ever tell them. I want my athletes to, if I could, I want them to keep their blinders on the whole time, and that's the hardest part. Is they need to stay within themselves and not look at what's around them. And like, for example, Val got up a really good point about the assault bike. Like, you have so much adrenaline, you go ham. But if you've never hit those numbers in training, what the hell are you doing them on the floor? You should hit the same numbers in training that you hit on the floor. If you do that, you're gonna be successful. But people go ham, and then all of a sudden they get to the next move and they're like dead. And that's called keeping the blinders on. Stay within your plan. Stay within your abilities. If you've never hit an RPM of over 90, what are you doing hitting an RPM over 90 on the assault bike? You better go back to your RPMs that you're used to. So.
Well, that's sort of a carryover from weightlifting.
Yes.
You have your competition PR and you have your real world PR, your training PR, and those might be 10, 15 pounds different. And so when somebody goes into a competition, you don't, on your first attempt, load up your training PR, because there's too many variables. There's lights on you, there's judges, there's everything else going on, and you've got to stay within what you know you can hit, or you're going to have a terrible time. In a CrossFit competition, you've got to be in a position through the workout to where you're not blown? Because once you blow up, it's over. I mean, it's so hard to get back in such a short time.
Yeah. Like CrossFit versus weightlifting, I actually feel like weightlifting, you can actually, after you hit your opener, you can actually go beyond yourself more because adrenaline can take you far in a weightlifting meet, whereas CrossFit, you have to stay within yourself. You have to stay with what you train for. How you finish is huge in CrossFit. You could finish stronger. You could maybe gain some more time, or your adrenaline might take you a little faster on your pacing, but it's a little different. I think at this level, it's really about staying within your game plan as much as possible.
Right.
Yes, and you have to know some athletes train better than they compete, and some athletes compete better than they train. I compete much better than I train. You should see me failing at things in training when I'm doing it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to go horribly. And then all of a sudden I have like superhuman powers when I compete. And people look at me and they're like, that's not what you did in practice. I'm like, it felt better now.
Yeah, very true. Very true point.
Well, and I think part of the reason to tie that back into your mindset thing, part of the reason you tend to do better in competition is because you do stay within yourself and you keep those blinders on, so you're able to harness more without going over the top, halfway through event one, blowing yourself to pieces, knowing that you still have the whole weekend to go. Yeah. Is there still, so you've been doing this CrossFit thing for a few minutes now, is there still a time where you surprise yourself? Do you get into a workout and go, I didn't know I had that in me today, or hit a weight you didn't know you had, or something like that?
I have more of those surprises during competition than just actual training.
Yeah. Val, would you say that being a mom and focusing more on your child during competition now makes you better?
I can't focus on her during competition. When I focus on her, I regret my choice. Because I'm away from her. So 2015, when I failed to qualify for the games, that was what entered my mind, was then, and thinking about her and going, what am I doing spending time away from her? She's so valuable and so important, and I'm out here being selfish. So I actually can't think about her when I'm competing. It makes it worse for me.
My wife has this story about you in 2015, actually, where she was getting off an elevator and you were chasing Vin through the hallways of the hotel. And my wife tells that story all the time to me because she just loves it. She's such a huge fan of yours. She goes she's being a mom the morning before, I think it was like Saturday morning, whatever, and then she goes gonna go and be a badass on the competition floor. Like, I get that, you're not gonna think of her on the floor when you're getting ready, but as soon as you're done with that competition, you're a mom.
Yes,
in the morning, you're
absolutely.
a mom.
Yes.
Not during the competition. That's what I meant.
Okay, sorry.
That makes a difference because you turn it off.
Because I can turn it off because all my thoughts aren't on the competition, because when I'm done, when I step off the floor, then it's back to family or grading papers or whatever else. And those thoughts aren't all consuming, which, yes, that makes a huge difference.
I always feel like people take it too seriously. And because they take it so seriously, they fail, or it makes them so obsessive. And I think success is so much has to do with being to categorize it a little bit and separate yourself from the sport and say, this is a sport, and I'm a mom, I'm a teacher, and I'm a wife first, and this is just what I do for fun, So I think that's my wife always talks about with you. And that's what she literally idolizes in you. So she told me to tell you that.
I adore your wife. Layla and I talked about that it was so nice for her, she said, to be able to look at the competition and know that it didn't define her, because there's other parts to your life, and that added pressure, if CrossFit is your only thing or your only defining thing, or you allow it to be your only defining feature, is a lot of external pressure or internal pressure. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. So I think the face of an athlete who is too deep in that is really obvious, right? When you see an athlete who is consumed in their competition and not having a good time and not performing at the level they think they should because of internal or external pressure, it's obvious. You can see it. When you see that in your gym, when an athlete comes into your gym with that look, how do you handle that situation?
They don't last very long. I mean, my gym
you straight send them home, like go take a week off and come back and see me.
My gym, a lot of people give Precision this persona like we're this competition gym and it's all we live for, and I don't know why, but our gym honestly is filled with a bunch of people that are 9-to-5ers, they're college kids, or they have families, and that's everything. And most of my athletes are I have a lot of masters athletes, and I have my whole team this year. They all had jobs. They all worked or went to school. It wasn't all CrossFit all the time. And I think because of that, that's why they were good. And Precision put out the best team we've ever put out this year. And on paper, it was our worst athletes. Be honest, we lost a couple athletes on paper. It wasn't supposed to be our best team, but they were the best teammates, and they also were they also had the priorities straight. And because of that, they did it for each other and for fun, and they had a great performance out there. And that's while our gym is very big on community and family, and I literally hold 2 or 3 babies a day while people work out. One of them being my nephew, and her mom, Katie, Val knows, is back training her butt off again. I'm literally holding Jack while Katie's training an hour a day or 2 hours a day at this point. So, yeah, we're extremely family-orientated. The ones that come in overly serious, like I'm going to go to regionals, I'm going to go to the games, I'm going to dedicate everything to this, they move away. They don't last long. They don't last long with us. It doesn't work out. I don't give them as much. I just can't understand it because I'm so family oriented myself, and I don't let my athletes take away from my kids. So they weed themselves out, or they figure it out fast, and they kind of get it together. One of my first questions I ask somebody is when they come in and they say all these things to me, I go, well, what else are you doing? And if they tell me, what's your job? What do you do for a living? And they say, well, just CrossFit. I go, you need to get a job. You need to have something else to fall back on, or something else to focus on other than just training.
Val, what's the atmosphere at your gym like?
Rising Wave is definitely the 8-to-5ers, family oriented, and general fun. It's general functional fitness, not quite the competitive spirit, I believe. They do local competitions, the members, but for the most part, we don't have a large competitive community.
And are you coaching there as well on a regular basis?
I can't keep my mouth closed when I'm there, so I'm not a paid coach, but I inadvertently coach. I can't. It's hard not to share information and knowledge when you're in that situation. So
that's part of the strength of the CrossFit model anyway, is that everybody kind of helps each other out. And in the coaching situations that I've been in, about half of the job is just to make sure that the advice being given isn't terrible. So you kind of hover around the periphery and listen to conversations and interject to make sure that there aren't, bad pieces of advice going out. But yeah, everybody learns faster when everybody's learning and everybody's teaching, and it's one of the fun parts. And I think it keeps everybody more engaged as well, because you can immediately, 6 months into your CrossFit experience, start sharing that experience with the people around you. So besides being a mom, what has been the biggest change for you over your now coming on a decade of CrossFit experience, of competitive CrossFit experience?
Well, the mom thing's the biggest change. I mean, before the kid, it was like all day, every day in the gym because they were my family and we did everything together. And then it's constant adjustment since then about what it looks like to be able to train with a kid at different ages. It looks different when they're under a year, and then it looks different when they're between a year and 2 years, and it looks different when they're 3 years and 4 years. And each age provides a different challenge, let's say, or opportunity. And then training partners. I would say the other biggest change is going from training mostly in my backyard by myself or training just one-on-one with a coach to prioritizing the training with friends or the classes or groups of people, because that was my first love in CrossFit, and I had to go back to that to find the passion and the enjoyment again.
Yeah, my gym, everyone has to take class. So all my competitive athletes, they must take class once a day or whenever in their gym. So they're going to they have their own competitive programming that they do, but they have to take class every day. It's required. So they are part of the community, and everyone buys into their success because they're with them every day.
I think that's a crucial step from a business perspective. It doesn't do you any good to have a gym with a bunch of elite athletes in it when it becomes a haves versus have-nots, or you develop. I mean, if you don't do that, you're almost encouraging a clique to develop, and you can't have that, because then you have a schism in your community and everything goes sideways, and it's all bad.
Exactly.
What have you guys seen, both of you? What have you guys seen as the biggest change in the games? I mean, everybody says the volume's gone up, but is there a single kind of running theme that you've watched evolve over the past 5 or 6 years? Even from the Open, moving through all the way through the games.
Besides the Icelandic women like dominating.
Well, if you just put daughter on the end of your name, then I think that's all you have to do.
I think that it's become more of a spectacle, which I don't know if it's good or bad. I mean, I remember 2009 regional, I coached 2 athletes at 2009 regional. They just signed up. We just went. Like there was no Open, anything like that. I think that it's kind of interesting is a lot of gyms, there aren't as many gyms around anymore. A lot of gyms are selling or they're closing shop or they're changing names or whatever. So I think that now at this day and age, getting to regionals with the amount of athletes, and I say athletes that are now doing CrossFit, it's definitely raised the game. And so that's definitely made him way more competitive and way more of a spectacle for the spectator to see, and and definitely provided for me a career, for Val a much funner hobby or sport. But I think it's provided opportunity. My wife talks about it with me all the time. Like, when the hell did I ever think I was going to make a living writing a workout for somebody, or writing a 3 workouts for a competition based off different movement patterns in for time setting? Like, I didn't know I was good at that until CrossFit came around. So it gave me a completely separate skill set that I didn't even know I had. I was a weightlifting coach. I knew how to do snatch and clean and jerk. So,
add on to that, the biggest change I think is what's possible. It's amazing to think what was so and for me a 95-pound clean was like so heavy and so hard, and Chris Clever was laughing at me that I was falling over with that weight. And now that'd be like an open level weight. It wouldn't even be a competitive level weight in any stretch of the imagination. And what the capacity for what the men and women can do in this sport is mind-blowing.
Yeah, one of the things I saw in the Open this year, the snatch ladder could have legitimately been a regionals workout not very long ago. I mean, that could have been, and I did terrible. I had a bad day that day, but I was so impressed, A, that they put it out there, and B, that so many people just destroyed it, just crushed that workout. It was really, really impressive. And for CrossFit, for so many years to have such a terrible reputation, and look at these bad weightlifters. Not anymore. They're putting up some pretty serious numbers now.
One thing I would say too about it, where it's going, is Val and I both have daughters, and I really like who my daughter sees every single day when they walk in the gym. The women they see every single day when they walk in the gym. And for me, that's extremely important, that she grows up seeing strong women besides her mother and her grandmother, but other women that are strong, because I want her to be strong. So that's a huge, huge deal for me.
Well, and in the media too, I think this is part of a greater cultural shift of normalizing people who are fit and strong. These aren't freaks. These are normal people with daughters and who teach how to full-time jobs and do all these things, who can be crazy strong and do bazillions of rope climbs and overhead squats with heavy dumbbells and all this stuff. That's what you should be able to do. I'll piggyback off that for a second. Was there a time, Val, when you found out while you were pregnant, or when you found out you were having a baby, were you momentarily terrified, like, I'm never going to be a CrossFit Games athlete again, or what is my life going to be like?
Yes, I'd finished third, and we had decided that as soon as the CrossFit Games were over, we were going to try no matter what, mostly because of age factors. And then I was able to train through my entire pregnancy, had there not been toes to bar, and my obstetrician saying she would kill me if I did toes to bar. I might have been able to qualify in the Open for regionals. I had very successful workouts while I was pregnant, and I was about six to 7 months pregnant at that point. And then I had her and took her to the game. She was born the week before game, so I was able to bring her to the beach event and cheer on my friends. But I was not sure that it was going to happen. And I remember everyone for the whole following year, do you feel back to yourself? Do you feel, like fit again? I'm like, no, I feel like an alien invaded my body and my body is not my own. But they always talk about mom strength and how it's amazing what the body can do. I think if I had do-overs, I would have maybe trained differently or used my recovery post-baby differently in how I went back to training. But no matter what, it all turned out well, and healthy pregnancy, healthy kid, and that's what you want out of that. But at no point did I initially think that I was going to make it back to the games.
Well, judging how things are going this year, I'd say you probably should have had several children and had them earlier. This is working out great. So where do the games go? Obviously, Castro's thrown some real wrenches into the works this year with dumbbell programming and some different things and 100-pound sandbags, which looked like so much fun. Do we see a lot more strongman stuff this year? I mean, swimming was a curveball a few years back. What happens next?
He's slowly been putting more strongman type things in there with like all the sled pulls and sled pushes and the snail and the rope pulls and those, I think he's had an element of that. I mean, there was even the heavy D balls in 2010.
Done every year. He loves strongman. Yeah, seal fit stuff.
That's cool.
But I don't think that'll change. There'll always be some element. I mean, I'm sure this year there's going to be some sort of triathlon. I mean, we're in Madison. There's got all the bike trails, the lake. There,
World of World, Madison, Wisconsin.
Right?
Yeah, I'm saying it too. I've been preparing my masters for one too. I'm like, hey guys, anything's games, not stub up anymore. So we're swimming, running, and biking.
Well, maybe you're mountain biking. There's the custom titanium $7,000 CrossFit mountain bike that came out a few months back. So there's
usually he's also posted some pictures of bikes in his Instagram, which is usually he's been pretty much telling you what he wants.
Yeah.
So so I think you're going to see just a little bit of everything.
I would love to see a legit World Cup level mountain bike course, because I'm a mountain biker and that's such a narrow, you've got to have this skill set. I think it'd be awesome. There would be a lot of crashing and it'd be fun to watch.
Oh.
Mike's like, don't do this to me. Please don't.
Oh man, I don't want to see any of my athletes really get on bikes for a long period of time on a mountain bike. I raced mountain bikes when I was a kid, and I'm gonna tell you right now, it's a whole other skill set, and I don't think athletes are ready to race a mountain bike down a course at all. Even if they were, I just nope, I don't want to see it.
Lots of just elbow pads and face mats.
With some straight, some straight course and some road bike, but I don't know about a mountain bike. So we'll see though.
I mean, they spent all that money to make a titanium bike. They might as well.
They did do a pretty gnarly single-speed mountain bike course a couple of years ago. I mean, that Pendleton was no joke. So, I mean, you could definitely see them again. I just don't want to see any injuries that could have been avoided. So that's kind of my whole thing. They train so hard to get there. You want to see them all finish.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about that. One of the most infamous articles I wrote was after the Murph catastrophe, and then they announced Murph but hadn't given any details about it for the following year. And so I wrote an article called "This is Why People Hate CrossFit," and then a million people wrote me letters saying, "This is why we hate you." But to their credit, to Castro and everyone else's credit, they have matured. They have made some adjustments. They've started looking after the athletes better. Has that been as readily apparent on the competition floor as it has, from the cheap seats where I sit?
Yes. I don't know. I think they make adjustments along the way as they figure things out. Rope climbs way back when Froning dropped from the rope and there wasn't a pad underneath and he thought he broke his heel, to the next year there being giant pads underneath us. I think, adjustments are made as they figure things out. I mean, I can only speak to 2014 when coaches weren't allowed back with their athletes. So I don't know what that's looked like over the last 2 years. Getting back with athletes or not, how much accessibility there is, and whether that's a boon or a bane to the athletes is up for debate.
I actually working on a CrossFit HQ event right now and they actually spend a lot of time on safety. They are over adamant about certain things being underneath the rig, the pads, all that stuff. They literally are learning as they go, though. Yes, I mean, I just talked about it earlier with the dumbbell, with the dips, and then how they changed Murph. It is a learn as you go process. It's in its infancy, but as far as safety, they do take it extremely seriously. It's one of the first conversations they have when they start a meeting, when workouts are being programmed. I've had to help with some programming, so it's okay. This is programmed. This is a great workout, Mike, but how can we make it safe? And that's literally the first question you get. So, and they definitely take it very, very seriously. They don't get enough credit for that, but haters love to hate, and they're going to look at everything they can to say what they can, and but I could say the same thing about football and helmets. We can go off on concussions all day long if you want.
Oh boy. That could be a whole other podcast, you and me, Mike.
You can say that the pecs tearing is a big deal. I can say how many concussions happened in the NFL this year, how many concussions happened in high school, how many concussions happened in college. It's going to be ridiculous. The number's insane. Per team, you're going to have like 15, 20 people maybe or less. I don't know. Water polo concussions. I mean, injuries happen in every sport, but those sports are just more mainstream, and we like them, so we don't have anything to say about them. But there's a lot to be said about CrossFit because it's so controversial,
Well, and it's hit a level of popularity in such a short amount of time that the spotlight on it is enormous. And if you look at where was football 10 years after the NFL was formed, what did safety look like in professional football in 1900 whatever it was, compared to where it is today? And they still have work to do, obviously.
Yeah, totally.
So, Val, what does your next 2 months look like? You're off of school, and you're in the gym.
I've got 3 more days of work, but without kids. And then, before we picked up the phone for our call, I'm sitting here working on my master's. I'm 3 classes away from finishing my master's in education.
Of course you are.
So trying to read this really heavy-duty school law, the public schools. Got to push through. If I can get a class done this summer before the games or by the end of the summer, that would be fabulous. And then fit in training and friends. Training with friends. There we go.
Training with friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what is there a thing that you're not doing? Like have you said no to anything this year? Like working on your master's, going to the CrossFit Games, I'm raising a kid, I'm holding down a job, just a few things.
Just a few things.
You do sleep, right? Is that a thing on your schedule?
I love to sleep. In fact, that's what my favorite part about regionals. I get to sleep between every workout. It's the most sleep I get all year long.
How was the pacing for that? I mean, obviously, I'm watching tape delay video of all of it because I can't watch it all at the same time, and I didn't go to regionals this year because they didn't put it in my hometown like they'd been doing. So you had hours between events, or?
We usually had 2, maybe 3 hours between events. So it was plenty of time for me to do a little cool down, go lay down on my mat and take a nap, get a little body work and wake myself back up and warm up and go again. Except for the last day, there wasn't time.
They also had the entire mornings off too, which is huge. Yeah.
I would get there, do whatever, get set up, and take a nap then too.
Yeah.
What do you eat between events?
Just my protein shakes. It's really, I know I should eat between, and games will be different since there'll be more than just 2 events a day. So food will actually happen then, but usually it's the protein, SFH recovery drink type of thing, and then maybe a squeezy pouch, anything just soft and easy to digest and not a lot of work to chew or do anything with.
Are there any holes that you're trying to patch between now and the games?
Oh, there's always holes. Just how many holes could I patch before then? Strength is a huge hole for me. Relative strength, for what the other girls are moving relative to what I move. Olympic lifting is a big hole. There's still a lot of room to grow on that one, especially if I start comparing numbers. Swimming's got to happen. A lot more strongman's got to happen. Volume has to happen. It feels like a lot.
I kind of feel like the CrossFit Games these days are more of a test of body's recovery than they are body's ability to do the workouts, because you don't have to score really high in every workout to be successful. Now, your recovery is really incredible for someone that's 38 years old. So all you do is take shake and pouch and get a massage between events. How are you going to recover at the CrossFit Games to be successful? You've gone top 3 twice. What do you do?
Yeah. I think one of the years I was really successful, I had Mike Lee as a coach, and he was back there just shoving drinks and sugar into me because that was part of the recovery part that I wasn't taking care of, but he managed that and for me, and that helped tremendously. And having body work just to get me back moving full range of motion is, for me, huge.
Are you going to bring your own body person to Wisconsin, or are you going to use a Rosti?
Have not thought about that yet, but that's a really good thing to put on my to-do list.
I saw to ask the question. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Do I have the funds to pay for somebody else to go?
I think I'm trying to raise funds to fly out our person. I have 4, so 3 of them use them. So I'm like,
right.
We should probably.
Well, if you bring nothing else, bring the mosquito repellent. Madison in the summer has mosquitoes that can pick you up and carry you off, like the monkeys in Wizard of Oz. They are really epic.
They don't like me.
Well, you're very lucky if they don't.
I'm just hoping we're indoors for the rest of the events where they can control the temperature for both our sake and for the spectator's sake.
It's humid, right? Madison really very humid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's got that Midwestern stick to it. It's real nice.
Just means you can't cool off.
Yeah, and you can't breathe.
Never cool off. Oh, yeah. Or breathing. Breathing. That's an issue.
It's a small thing, really.
Well,
it's recommended only, but it's not that big a deal. So, Val, where can we find you online? All of your social things.
Val Voboril.
Every social media handle is that.
Yeah, I think it's just Val Voboril. My Instagram is.
I don't know. You don't know.
I don't know. I'm looking it up. I don't know.
No, it is Instagram, Val Voboril. It is Facebook, same thing. I should have looked anyway. And Twitter's the same. Lucky you. You actually got your name as a handle for all 3 major social media outlets. And your website is really cool. It's justval.com.
Yes.
Has all of your athletic history on it, and a very intense cover photo of you thumbing up the camera like you mean it.
Right?
Yes.
Very serious.
Very much more serious than you actually are on the competition floor at any given time. And Mike, where can we find you?
Just Tromello is my Instagram handle. Precision CrossFit is you can also find me on there. I do everything for our gym. Also precisioncrossfit.net, and our blog, our programming blog's on there. I write that every day. And then Facebook's just my name, Mike Tromello. Yeah.
And of course on Breaking Muscle with all sorts of workouts and programs and commentary and videos and
all over Breaking Muscle these days. Yeah, all over Breaking Muscle.
All of the things that we can browbeat you into doing.
CrossFit that they can convince me to do. Exactly.
Mike, Val, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk just today, and we'll chat again maybe after the games.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you have a great rest of the afternoon.